So here's an example of a search that I've seen students try many times and often feel disappointed with the results that they're getting. So here I've searched in Google Scholar for pros and cons of self driving cars. This is a reasonable way to approach this, but the problem comes from the fact that this is a keyword search. So it's looking for the words pros and cons of self driving cars. It's not doing anything to identify what those pros and cons might be. It's just looking for occurrences of those words. Now, there may be articles that refer to the pros and cons of self driving cars, and those might even be helpful for what we're going to try and accomplish today. But for the most part, this type of search isn't going to be very effective at identifying the academic literature about self driving cars and identifying the things that we would consider pros and cons of self driving cars. This is, one version of this problem. I've seen students try things like effects of something or impacts, consequences, benefits, importance of. There's lots of different versions of this where we're kind of using vague terms that don't refer to anything in particular. And we're using those as placeholders for actual concepts that we want to explore. So that's the problem that we're running into. We're searching for the words pros and cons instead of searching for the actual things that we would consider pros and cons of self-driving cars. So what we need to do first is identify potentially what those things are, and then we can search for those things. There are a few different ways to do this. I think the best way is to use your own thinking to identify pros and cons or effects or whatever it is you're looking for. Brainstorming and reflecting on the topic, thinking about the different elements, the different things that are most meaningful to you. That's going to be the best way, I think. If you need a little nudge or a little external help, you can use, like I've done here, just a simple Google search for pros and cons. That's going to help us to kind of get our footing in this topic and understand potentially what some of the pros and cons are. Like most things nowadays, there's an AI overview at the top here of our Google search results. And, if I'm being honest, like this type of AI overview could be useful for what we're trying to accomplish here, which is identify different aspects of a topic or find the distinct things to search for. I wouldn't take any of the output of this AI tool as factual information, or I wouldn't use that as the evidence itself, for or against self-driving cars. But this will help us, again, to get centered on our topic, get a footing in the different aspects of our topic. And then from there, we can actually do legitimate academic research to find things that support those different sub-aspects of this topic. Further down, we have web results of different websites and pages that also talk about pros and cons of self-driving cars. So these are other places where you can just get a sense of what those different aspects are, what the different sort of arguments in favor or against driverless cars are, and then take it from there in terms of academic research. So from that preliminary look at this topic, I identified job displacement as an interesting element of that topic. So that's a consideration that I think is important. It's one among many. But what we can do now that we have a sense of kind of what some of the pros and cons are, we can actually search for those things specifically and see what the academic literature has to say about each one. So here's my search for job displacement and self-driving cars, and I'm getting much better results in terms of how they're targeted at the specific aspects of my topic that I'm interested in researching. Whereas with the pros and cons search, I was just getting a whole mix of different things that mentioned the terms pros and cons, as opposed to this search, which gets really right to the heart of one aspect of the topic that I'm interested in. In terms of some other ways of kind of navigating this situation, I always think that the library's resources are kind of underutilized for things like this, especially early on in a research project. You might benefit from looking at an encyclopedia article found in one of our subject encyclopedias in the library. You might benefit from finding one really good book about your topic that'll break down the different considerations that you might examine more closely. And then you can take each of those elements and research them individually and then kind of bring that together in your final paper. So I hope that that was helpful. If you like these kind of videos where I go through some of these common pitfalls that students run into in conducting research, subscribe to our channel and use the bell icon to get notified when we release new videos. We're going to keep at it. And I encourage you to keep at it. Keep trying using the tools, keep working with the library's databases and our search tools to try and find information. Eventually, things really start to click and you start to get a good handle on things. If you're feeling frustrated or aren't feeling like you're getting the most out of these tools, definitely feel free to come and talk to us in the library or contact us through our website. We're always happy to respond to questions, and we're always thrilled at the opportunity to help students find their way and navigate their way through all of these resources. So definitely get in touch if you have any questions, and we're happy to help you out. Aside from that, I hope that you have a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll see you around the library soon.